they say you can't teach a knockout punch. And I don't think you can teach a sense of humor. It's, some people have it. Some people have it better than others. Some people don't. As I keep saying, there are no rules. If you're not seeing comedy in life, that has a great deal to do with your own sense of humor. It's there. It's all around you. Farce is what life is. You have to observe it. You have to appreciate it. I remember watching Nixon when he was running for president, and it's there, I guess, somewhere on Google, but he did something, and I couldn't believe he did it. I think it was the Republican National Convention. It may have been Florida or something. And he said, "And I'm here to tell you." And I said, "Oh my God, he's out of sync." He didn't say, "I'm here to tell you." He said, "And I'm here to tell you." I said, this man is running for president and he's out of sync as a person. And that's the kind of stuff, and you write that down. Mel Brooks once said, if you see somebody slip on a banana, it's a comedy. If you slip on a banana, it's a tragedy. And if you don't see, some of the guys laugh at that, if you don't see the comedy in that, if you don't hear what he's talking about, it's, and there are people who are great at what they do sometimes and don't have what I think is a sense of humor. It's out there constantly. I want to give one example of what Strasberg once said, which I thought was valuable. And he talked about playing realism, playing comedy, and doing farce, the differences between the three. And he gave an example when he was talking about Mrs. Robinson. He says, let's say there is a married woman who's at the window of a hotel. And it's, she's married, but she's there, meets this other married guy, whatever, they're having secretly having an affair. And she's looking out and smoking. And there's the door. She looks to see, because there's the door, and the door opens. He's got a key, and he comes in, and he closes the door. And he looks at her across the bed. She looks at him, and they walk around the bed and embrace and kiss. Realism. Now let's go to comedy. Same thing. She's looking out the window. He comes in, turns the door. She looks at him, closes the door. He looks at her. They run across bed, around the bed, rather. Run across. Becomes more comedic, and they embrace. Farce. She looks at the door. Door opens, he closes, and without the acting changing at all, he runs across the bed like a Marx brother. Goes running right across the top of the bed. And as she starts to get on top of the bed too, she says, so the only difference is you get there faster. And that's the only difference in comedy and farce. The acting doesn't change. You never sweat as actors, and sometimes the actors do, doing farce. It's realistic. You just get there as fast as you can. Meaning you don't know that you're running across the bed. You're not aware of it as the character. You're just getting there as fast as you can. I think to understand is, in life, our brain is always trying to get ahead, whether we're watching a film or hearing a joke. What's the punchline? We're trying to guess what it's going to be. And the great jokes surprise you because you haven't guessed it. You didn't know, oh my God, I didn't know that was going to be the punchline. And these clowns, these actors, are able to deliver that. Chaplin didn't do anything different than a great boxer does. Chaplin did the same thing over and over and over again in a film, and then violated it and surprised you. Just as a boxer will try to show the other boxer, this is what I do, this is my style. And then at a certain point, when the other boxer, I've had boxers tell me this, when they think the other boxer knows, okay, this is my routine, then they violate it. They asked George Burns, who was a great comic in my day, and he wanted to live to be 100, which he did and performed in Las Vegas, but his material was always about sex. And when he turned 80, he said, what was your worst sexual experience like, Mr. Burns? And he says, pretty good. He said something a little rougher when he turned 90, which, yes, you can use or not use. They said, you still have sex, Mr. Burns? And now that you've turned 90, he says, yes, I do. And he had a very raspy voice. He says, yes, I do. They said, what's it like? He says, did you ever shoot pool with a piece of rope? You got to be a man to understand. There, that's my guy. I think it's a mistake for directors, and God knows they've made these mistakes. It's not like the stage. On the stage, in comedy, many times you have a setup, a line, and then you have a laugh. It doesn't necessarily work like that in movies. And I think it's a lesson that directors sometimes, they cruelly, they learn, because you know if the tone of the film is funny, is comedy. You know if the scene is funny. I mean, you know that. And you hire actors, hopefully, that have a sense of humor, because it's like I said, you can't teach them knockout punch. They're gifted and you can teach someone to box, but people that have a one punch knockout, I mean, that's just, or a home run hitter or whatever. And people either they have a sense of humor or they don't. And if you know the scene is, you can direct it with that tone, or that you can tilt it, but don't mess around, because you're getting in the cutting room. You don't know where you're going to be. You don't know if you're in a single shot or a two shot or a master, and you don't know how you're cutting the scene rhythmically, and you can get killed trying to protect, and they have done so, trying to protect the line. And also you get into previews before a movie opens, and you are stunned at what gets the laugh. Many times not a line at all, just it's a reaction, or it's or you're stunned at where the audience is moved and they start to cry. You know what's funny, but don't plan it to at all costs to protect that line has got to get a laugh, because sometimes it won't. Another example, I guess, could be in The Graduate, because Nichols, God bless him, it's still the singular most layered experience that I've ever had as an actor, because he was able to get 4 weeks of rehearsal and take 100 days to shoot what I guess ordinarily would have been 50 days. So everything was so exquisitely laid out and thing. And when we started rehearsing, he said to me, "Are you a virgin?" And I said, "No, obviously I'm 29 years old." He says, "Do you think Benjamin's, because he's supposed to be like 21, is he a virgin?" I says, "I don't think he is. No, if you're asking me, it didn't say explicitly in the book." He said, "Well, what's different? Do you think?" "Well, I don't think he's ever been to bed with his mother." And in a sense, that's the subtext of what The Graduate is. It's his mother's best friend, but it's as close to incest, I guess, as you can get, which is where the comic tension is. And he said, "Well," he says, "can you remember?" And he starts asking me about my memories of when I was a virgin, and when I was just an adolescent. His brilliance took him there. I said, "It's funny, Mike, because we had the time. We had a month." And I said, "Well, it's funny you say this, because I could go to the store and buy Kotex," which is what it was called, without stammering or whatever, with the druggist. I said, "But it came a point in time where we didn't call them condoms, we call them profile." I says, If there was suddenly, there was a man there, I had to build up the courage. Oh, and can I have, a dozen Trojans or whatever it is? It was very hard for me to say back in the day. I was always at the last thing. And if at the last second there's a woman that jumped up from behind a counter halfway saying, oh, can I have a dozen Band-Aids? I could not do it. My heart would pound. It was just a personal, anxiety and fear. And we somehow get to the point, he said, so when you walk in for the first time into the hotel, Benjamin Braddock walks in to get a hotel room, and Buck Henry is behind the counter, who was one of the writers. Can I help you, sir? Where I'm right at the point of asking for a room for 2 people or whatever, but Nichols says to me, can you make it to yourself as if you're asking for a pack of condoms and it's suddenly a woman pharmacist? Can you somehow substitute that? And I said, well, yes, I'll try. And when we did it in rehearsal, it was just just in an ordinary soundstage room. But here we're on location at the Ambassador Hotel, and there happened to be the ringer there. And he said, yes, sir, do you have any bags or just a toothbrush? Something like that. But I was, the character's supposed to have his heart pounding because it's getting a room for him and himself to have an affair with Mrs. Robinson for the first time. And he puts his hand on, hits the bell, which we didn't do in rehearsal, and I immediately just put my hand on it so he couldn't do it again. I had not planned it. It was just, I was in the moment at that moment somehow. And he went, hit the bell, and I put my hand on it, hit, and he can't do it again. And it's in the movie. And actually, Nichols ruined the take because I could hear Mike laughing, and it just broke him up. And because we didn't have monitors in those days, but he's just standing next to the camera. And then I think we staged one. But it's one of the big laughs in the movie, which is just came out because that's what you would do. Well, I think I mentioned before that I think the joke is underappreciated. The joke is, comedy is underappreciated. As they say, you can't think of a comedy that will ever win an Academy Award. We are, the second-class citizen, if you will. Chaplin, I think, was finally given a Lifetime Achievement Award. And also, I was talking in between setups here, and the first AD was saying, I'm not saying the names because I'm protecting your privacy, but was bringing up Harold Lloyd, who had 3 fingers, and one was a prosthetic, and he did his own stunts in one of the great silent movie actors, and you can't even call him a comedian. He was an actor. Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin. I mean, it's incumbent on us to see these people because they are painting. They're taking reality and giving it a slight tilt so that it somehow gets its point across under the disguise, if you will, or the scrim of being funny. Yeah, I could tell a lot of dirty jokes. I tell jokes that I think are great jokes, but there are profound, the most profound joke that isn't a laugh joke, but it's an interior smile. It's the 2 Jews against the wall waiting to be killed by the Nazis. One guy up there in the firing squad, and the guy's going, eins, zwei. And one Jew says, wait a minute, could I have a blindfold? And the Jew next to him nudges him and says, shh, 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 don't make trouble. It's the profoundness of that joke.